Book 2, Part 17. Ryan stepped up in front of me, and we both looked up at him. He didn't look so happy now. I wondered if giving him the shirt would help, but I knew I couldn't part with it. "I'm having Phil brought up," he said quietly. Trax stiffened. "Do you think that's such a good was all he got out before the alpha growled. "They're going to put him in the other room, so we can take this slow." Then he turned. "Marcus, Rock, I want you on this side of that door. No one gets through without my permission." They both nodded and moved to stand in front of the closed door that separated the two rooms. "Jackson, you're backup," Ryan stated, and the other nodded, the humor gone from his eyes and his face. Ryan knelt in front of me, and I squirmed a bit. I didn't like being in a position higher than him. It felt wrong. His eyes moved over my face, then down to my hands that were clutching the shirt. "Raina, there is probably a better way to do this, but I don't know what that is," he stated quietly. I smiled. "It's okay. I appreciate all that you're doing for me." Trax sighed. She thinks she's finally going mad from the shifting and that we're drugging her to make the end easier for her. Ryan closed his eyes and drew in a slow breath. When he opened them, he stood. "Well then, we'll just do this and hope she finally realizes the truth at some point." The room went quiet then, everyone in their positions. I relaxed against Trax and closed my eyes, letting myself float on that wonderful cloud. The scent of the drug filled me, relaxed me, and I didn't care if we all stayed like this forever. Suddenly, my heartbeat picked up. Then it seemed to divide. I gasped and sat up quickly, my eyes wide. I pushed the shirt against my chest and started to gasp for breath. Not because I couldn't breathe, but because the sensation was that extreme. Now there were two hearts beating in my chest. My skin was covered in goosebumps. Somehow I was standing now, and Trax was next to me. I jumped when he touched my arm. My whole body was shaking, and I looked towards the door that Marcus and Rock were guarding. "Leave her be," I heard Ryan whisper. "But look at her," Trax hissed. Their voices seemed far away. My eyes were focused, my chest was pounding, and I took a few steps around the bed. I didn't see the faces of the ones that guarded it now. I was looking at that wooden barrier that hid whatever was over there. My arms relaxed and fell to my side, but I kept a grip on that shirt. The same scent was coming from the other side, only it was stronger and alive somehow. It made the smell from the shirt suddenly seem old and almost musty. I wrinkled my nose, dropped the shirt, and took a few more steps. I heard talking around me, but couldn't make out what was being said. A few more steps, and I was in front of the wolf sentries. I looked up over their heads and inhaled slowly. I moaned, and then gasped again and took a step back, putting my hand to my head. I had heard someone talking. In my head, and it wasn't me. I shook my head hard and lost my balance, but someone grabbed me from behind before I could fall. "Tell me what you're feeling," came Ryan's low alpha voice in my ear. "Over there," I whispered, looking past the two bodies. "It's over there." "What is?" he asked, keeping his voice quiet and deep. So deep that it rumbled softly through me. I lifted my hand, not remembering that I had dropped the shirt. I blinked slowly, but kept my eyes on that door. "Where this came from," I replied in a shaky whisper. He put his hands on my shoulders. "How does it make you feel?" My head moved from side to side. I don't know. It's an amazing feeling," I whispered back. "Like floating on clouds. So soft, so warm. And in here." I tapped my chest. "It's in here too." "How?" "I don't know, but there are 2 hearts in here now." I heard Track whisper something. His tone said he was worried. When I turned to look at him, and I smiled. "It's okay, Track." He frowned back, and I gave a slow nod. My attention went back to the door, and I reached my hand out. "Can I go in there?" There was silence behind me, and then Marcus stepped to one side, exposing the shiny doorknob. I smiled and reached for it. "Is this a good idea?" I heard Track say behind me, but I didn't stop. I grabbed the knob and turned it. Ryan's hands stayed on my shoulders as I pushed the door open. I kept my feet where they were as the other room came into view. Then I saw him. Phil stood a few feet inside the other room. His brown eyes met mine, and I ran to him. His arms wrapped around me, and I smiled, burying my face in his chest. This is where I was meant to be, forever. That nagging feeling was gone. The sensation wasn't something I could ever put into words. My mind spun wildly, and the world seemed to spin faster in the other direction. Then it was as if both sides slowed down and things started to click into place. It was as if the entire universe finally lined up, and our bodies felt the intense force of it all sliding into place. I gasped when the last sensation clicked. My body gave a hard shake. My limbs felt numb, and then a warm sensation began to melt over me, coating me with the most amazing feeling. Everything was right. This is how absolutely everything was supposed to be. How odd that I had never noticed how off things had been before. I smiled and felt the tears roll down my cheek. I suddenly felt pity for the rest of the world, knowing that they were not experiencing the same feeling. How could anyone survive without this? My heart ached for them, and I turned into his chest and cried harder, feeling so much sadness for the others. His arms held me tight, and I felt his cheek on my head. I smiled through my tears, the pain slowly being pushed away. He felt it too. I was not alone anymore. We now shared something that the rest of the world never would. I lifted my head and rubbed my cheek along his, as the waves of happiness rippled through me. Phil's cheeks were wet too, and I reached up and touched one that ran down his jaw. I pulled my hand away and looked at the wetness. It sparkled on my skin, and I smiled again, as it was absorbed and gone in the blink of my eye. He leaned into my ear and whispered, "I told you I would come for you." That is actually the end of the second book. So I'm going to pause, and then I will start the next book. Sorry, this one was so short.